Hello. So we're in the second part of this guide on how to track and measure marketing ROI. So the first method we reviewed, we used Hubspot CRM tracking code. And this second implementation is going to be using a first-party cookie. Now this is going to be a little bit more technical, but this guide will hold your hand during the process. Essentially what we're going to do is that when a user clicks on a link that has the UTM parameters where the user came from, the UTM data will be stored in a first-party cookie. And a cookie is a small file that is stored locally on your computer so that website you visit remembers you. What we'll be doing is we'll be storing the data where the user came from in a cookie, enter that data through a hidden form field, and then that data will be displayed to us via email notification from the form submission, and we can enter that information in manually in the CRM. So this is useful because if you don't have a CRM and you're just entering in leads into a spreadsheet, or you have a CRM, but it's not HubSpot and it may not even have a tracking code, or it may not have the capabilities of storing user data into the CRM. Well, this implementation is going to be very handy for you to reference. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a GTM container. So this is Google Tag Manager. Now, if you don't have a Google Tag Manager account created, I recommend pausing this video and creating one right now. And then once you have it created, come back and we'll go through what we need to do. Okay, so this is Google Tag Manager, and I'm not going to go super into detail what Google Tag Manager is. But essentially, Google Tag Manager allows you to manage multiple traffic tracking scripts, which in layman's terms, it's different pieces of code on your website without the need to hire a developer and make those changes directly into your website. So what we do is take a piece of code provided by Google Tag Manager, implement that into your head tag, and say you want to add additional tracking codes or cookies or things like that. Well, it could be all done through this GTM or Google Tag Manager dashboard rather than updating the website's code to make those changes. So there's a lot more to this tool than just that, but that's my explanation of what Google Tag Manager is. So you have your GTM container created. You have an idea of what Google Tag Manager is. So now what we need to do is we need to add the Google Tag Manager code into the Webflow custom code section. So as mentioned earlier, this Google Tag Manager is essentially acts as a container for any third-party code we want to add in the future. It could be another tool such as Hotjar. It could be a custom cookie. It could be a variety of things. It could even be Google Analytics. So we're adding this Google Tag Manager code into the head tag of our website that one time. And then any other tools we want to add in the future can be done through Google Tag Manager. Let's add the code to our website. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to admin. And then we're going to go to install Google Tag Manager. So we're going to copy the head tag. And then what we could do is you could open up a separate notepad and copy both tags at the same time, but we'll just do it one by one. So it says here we have to paste this code as high as possible, the head tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to Webflow. We're going to close out of this. Go to dashboard. Select the gear icon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to custom code. And then we're going to paste the first part of the code into the head tag. And then there's a second piece of code that we need to add. So what we're ready to do is we're going to go back into Google Tag Manager. And then it says here, paste this code immediately after the opening body tag. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this right here. We're going to go back. Actually, we're going to go here. And then we're going to paste this right here. So we're going to save here. We're going to save here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to publish to selected domains. All right, now we're going to open up a link into the new tab. We're going to copy and paste this link to make sure everything works because we did do the installation. We're going to test to see if it's installed, and we got the check mark, so the installation went well. So let's navigate back to our workspace. All right, let's go back to Webflow, close out of this. Now that Google Tag Manager is successfully installed onto our website, we have to make modifications to our form in order to pass through that data. So we're going to make some changes to the website right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Open in Webflow. And then we're going to navigate to the contact form. We're going to create form fields that are hidden. But for the sake of demonstration, we're not going to hide them immediately because I want you to see exactly how everything works and how everything is connected. So what we're going to do is this is already a form that is created within Webflow. And what we're going to do is we're going to add additional fields. Now, we're going to be using the custom code element instead of the form field element. I'll put a link into the description of how to do this more in detail. For some reason, we can't use the form fields provided to us by Webflow. We have to use the custom code workaround in order to successfully implement what I am going to demonstrate today. What we're going to do is we're going to hit this plus icon. We're going to look up custom code. Not custom element, code. Yeah, code embed. So we're going to use the code embed element in Webflow. So we're going to drag this in right here. And I am going to start adding in the fields that we want to pass through. So for our UTM parameters, we want to pass in the source field, the medium field, and the campaign field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first enter in the source field. And I want you to pause this video and write out this first input. Okay. We're going to save and close. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 more code fields as well. So instead of source, this is going to be medium. I'm going to hit save and close. And then instead of source, this is going to be campaign. So just follow along this video. I'll be able to explain everything later, but right now we're just adding the fields right now. So we're going to hit save and close. All right, so we're going to publish our changes. Now that our changes are published, we're going to click on the link right here. And you can see that our fields have been updated. So let's review what happens when we use a link for our UTM parameters. So we're just going to copy this link right here, navigate back to the Google URL builder. We're going to enter in the website URL, and we have some data already for us. We're going to select this. And then as you can see here, we have our UTM parameters. We have source, we have medium, and we have campaign. So this does not match what's currently in the URL. So what we'll be doing in the next step within Google Tag Manager, we're going to create a first-party cookie. And how this cookie is going to work is that whenever someone clicks on a link that has UTM parameters, it's going to store that data into a cookie. And the next piece of code that we'll be adding into Google Tag Manager is going to take the data from the UTM parameters in the cookie, and it's going to send that data into these fields right here. So once we do the implementation, you'll be able to visually see that the UTM source Google, the UTM medium CPC, and the UTM medium campaign will be filled in for us because of the JavaScript code that we'll be implementing in Google Tag Manager. So let's go to Google Tag Manager now. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new tag. I have the code that we'll be adding into Google Tag Manager and GitHub. And I am going to put a link to this in the description below. It doesn't matter what order you add these, but what we're going to do is we want to first store the value of the UTM parameters into a first party cookie. So we're going to click on this link right here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste this code. So we're going to Command or Control A and then Command and Control C. We're going to navigate back into Google Tag Manager. And then we're going to select Custom HTML. And then we're going to be pasting in that code. And then what we're going to do is we should give this a name. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this name right here for our tag name. Right here. And then we're going to set a trigger. So the trigger that I recommend that you use is the initialization all pages. And the reason why you want to choose this trigger for this is because essentially it's going to create the cookie when the user first lands onto your website. And you want to make sure that that cookie is created no matter what page they start with, right? So it could be the home page, it could be an about page, it could be a contact page. So no matter which page the user visits your website through, this cookie is always going to get created. I'm not going to go into super detail about like what the code does. And to be transparent, I actually hired a developer to create this for me. If you want to hire this developer yourself, I linked his profile into the video description below. But essentially, the first function creates the cookie, and then it sets a date to expire it. And then the second function is going to reference the URL, and it's going to look for our UTM parameters. The second part of this function looks like it is trying to identify if it's a UTM source, UTM medium, or UTM campaign. And we did add UTM ID, but just ignore that part for now. You might even, if you don't want to use it, you could probably modify the code yourself. But essentially it references the URL, and then it's going to store the value from the UTM parameters into a cookie, which we'll be able to see in a browser in a minute. So I am going to save these changes. All right. So then we have to create another tag and another piece of code. And what this code is going to do is it's going to take the data from the cookie and put it into the 3 fields that we created on our Webflow form. So what we're going to do, so select create new tag. Let's go back to our GitHub repository and then select the next one, which is cookie to form field data push. So we're going to select that one, and then we're going to select Control or Command A, and then Control or Command C. We're going to copy the code, and then we're going to select custom HTML again. And then we're going to paste the code here. And what we're also going to do is we should name the tag. So we're going to navigate back to our repository. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy the name of this CHTML. So we're going to go back to Google Tag Manager. We're going to paste it in. and then we have to set our trigger. So you could do all pages if you want, but for this specific case, we want it to only do the cookie to form field data push on the contact page. So we're going to do on down ready. And then we're going to select only some down ready events. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select a variable contains page path. And then we're going to set it to equals. And we're going to select contact because we only want this data to push on the contact form. If we did it for all pages, then it's going to run this code even if there's no field to push data to. And in order to optimize performance on your website, we don't want this code to run on each page view. We only want it to run on a specific page, and the only page that makes sense to run this on is the contact form. So we're going to select save, and then save. All right, so now we got our changes implemented in Google Tag Manager. So the next thing that we need to do is we want to preview these changes in order to make sure everything is working properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to select preview. And let's see. So we have a link with UTM parameters already established. So we're just going to go ahead and use this one. And we're going to uncheck include debug signal in the URL. I think that's going to cause issues with the UTM parameters. We don't want that. So we're going to select connect. It's going to open a new window. We have our UTM parameters here. And let's take a look at inside what's going on in the Google Tag Manager. So this is great. So we have our first tag fired, which is what we wanted. And it says CHTML push UTM values to first party cookie. So the tag fired properly, which is great. So what we want to do, let's actually take a look inside of our browser and see where this data is stored. So let's go to the preview window and hit Control Inspect. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Application. And then I'm going to make this window a little bit bigger so you can see. So then we already have cookies selected. And you can see the cookies in the browser. So we have the UTM campaign cookie have a value. We have the UTM cookie CPC, and then we have the UTM source cookie set as Google CPC. So granted, you could probably just put Google, but anyways, the point is we have our cookie created, and we're gonna now go to the contact form, and that code that we created in the second tag is it's gonna send that data through the fields, right? So we're gonna go into contact. And then you can see here that we navigated into the Contact Us page. And you can see that when we made that navigation, that cookie to form field data push fired for us, right? Because we specified that we only want this to fire on the Contact Us page, which is great. So we have our data filled in right here. We have Google CPC. Or it should just be Google. I think that was an error on my part. Then we have CPC, and then we have Spring Sale 2025. So I'm just going to put in some test data here. We're going to submit the form. So we submitted our form. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that that form data is in our email notification. So you can use Gmail, wherever you're sending your Webflow forms to, use that email. And as you can see here, we have the source, Google. We have the medium, CPC. And then we have the campaign name, which is Spring Sale 2025. So I could reference this email and I could put it in a Google spreadsheet if I don't have a CRM, or if I have a CRM that doesn't support source form tracking as a capability, I can create additional fields in my CRM for this specific contact information and enter in the source, medium, and campaign name. And I can track that lead down the line and if it led to a sale or not. So we're not done quite yet. So now that we've previewed our changes, everything is working. We're going to close out a window. We're happy with our changes in Google Tag Manager. So we're happy with our changes in Google Tag Manager. So we're just going to leave the preview window. So now what we're going to do is we're going to submit our changes. And then we're just going to put added cookie and data push code. You go here, right here. We're going to publish our changes. Right? We're going to go navigate back to our website. And now that we've published our changes, we should see these fields updated in real time. So what we're going to do is we're going to refresh. And as you can see here, the data is updated accordingly. So there's another thing I'm hoping to kind of talk through real quick. So you might be wondering how the data gets set into the field. So each of these input fields has a different name. So in the source, we have name equals source, and then we have the name equals medium. So we have three fields with three separate names. So what the code that pushes the data from the cookie into the field references the name value of these inputs and submits that data into the form. And we can go back to Google Tag Manager. We can go back to our tags. And then we can go to the code that actually pushes the data into the form for us. So this function extracts the UTM parameters from the cookie. And then the second piece of this code, what it essentially does is it references the name of the input. So we have input name source. And what it's going to do, it runs a second piece of code that actually puts the data into the input with the given name. So that essentially how it works. So the last thing we need to do is we need to hide these fields because obviously we don't want people who visit our website to see these fields and things like that. So what we need to do is we're going to go back to Webflow, and then we're going to add type to heading. So just follow along, type equals hidden. All right. So we're just going to copy this real quick. Save and close. Good. Gonna add it again. Save and close. Good. Save and close. All right. So let's publish our changes one last time. All right, we're going to refresh our screen. And then what you could do is you can make sure that the data is being submitted through Chrome DevTools. So we can see that source is being updated to the right value right here. Google here, Google here. And then we have the medium set to CPC here. And then we have the campaign name. Yep, and then we have the value of the campaign updated as well. So everything's updated, everything's looking good. So I would just do one last test, make sure everything works, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to submit our form. We got a success. All right. We got a new notification, and it looks like everything is working. All right. So there you have it. That's a full walkthrough how to set up source form tracking utilizing a first-party cookie so that you can track and measure marketing ROI. If you got value out of this video, I hope that you like and subscribe to my channel. Also, if there's anything that you wish to see in future videos, or if you have any kind of questions, comments, or concerns in general about this video, feel free to comment. Goodbye.
Right.